The Forgotten Legend. The crystalline towers of Caltheria Prime stretched toward 3 suns, casting rainbow shadows across the assembled War Council. High Executor Valen stood before the holographic display, watching red markers spread like blood across the star map. Each marker represented a world consumed by the scourge. Each marker was a failure. Valen's silver scales dimmed with exhaustion. He had led the Caltherian Empire for 60 cycles, and never had he faced an enemy like this. The scourge came from beyond the galactic rim, a force of biological horror that consumed everything in its path. They learned, adopted, and multiplied with terrifying speed. Conventional warfare meant nothing to them. "Another fleet lost at Sector 19, reported General Thrace, his 4 arms crossed in a gesture of resignation. They tried the plasma bombardment strategy. The scourge absorbed the energy and grew stronger. Around the circular chamber, representatives from a dozen allied species sat in grim silence. The Muradin Chancellor, a being of pure energy contained in a crystalline vessel, flickered weakly. The Torvak ambassador lowered all 3 of his heads in defeat. Even the proud Xantharis warriors, bred for battle across 5 generations, looked hollow. Valen studied each face. He saw what he felt in his own hearts: despair. They were losing, not slowly, but inevitably. Within 2 standard years, the scourge would reach the core worlds. Within 3, civilization, as they knew it, would end. "We need something new," Valen said quietly. "Something the scourge has never encountered." "There is nothing new," General Thrace replied. "We have tried every weapon, every strategy, every alliance. The scourge counters everything." In the corner of the chamber, a young diplomat named Risa shifted uncomfortably. She had been silent throughout the council, as was proper for someone of her junior rank. But now she felt compelled to speak, even if it meant ridicule. "What about the archive of lost civilizations?" she asked. Every eye in the chamber turned toward her. Valen's inner eyelids flickered with interest. "Explain." Risa stood, her wings folding nervously against her back. She was Valerian, a species known for their historical scholarship. Her pale blue skin marked her as someone who spent more time in libraries than on battlefields. 3,000 cycles ago, our explorers documented hundreds of species across the outer spiral arms. Most of those records were lost during the first consolidation, but some archives remain in the deep vaults. I have been studying them. "And?" General Thrace prompted impatiently. "I found references to a world called Earth. The records are fragmented, but they describe a species that should not have existed. They called themselves humans. Their planet was classified as a Class 12 death world." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Class 12 was the highest danger rating. Worlds where gravity crushed bones, where the atmosphere corroded metal, where the native life consisted entirely of predators. No intelligent species could evolve in such conditions. It was theoretically impossible. The records describe humans having no natural weapons, no armor, no enhanced senses, yet they became the dominant species on their world. They mastered fire, built civilizations, and eventually reached the stars. "Impossible," said the Torvak ambassador. "A species without evolutionary advantages cannot compete with natural predators." "That is what I thought," Risa continued, "but the archives contain testimonies from early contact missions. Observers described humans as having an unusual trait. They did not stop. When injured, they continued fighting. When exhausted, they pushed beyond physical limits. When outnumbered, they found ways to win that defied logic. The observers called it stubbornness. Some called it insanity." Valen leaned forward. "Where is this Earth now?" "That is the problem. Earth vanished from all records 2,000 cycles ago. Some believe it was destroyed. Others think humans simply withdrew from galactic affairs. The location was lost." "Then this is useless," General Thrace said dismissively. "We cannot pin our hopes on ghost stories." But Valen was not ready to dismiss the idea. He had learned long ago that sometimes the most desperate situations required the most desperate solutions. Risa, you will have access to our full archives and computational resources. Find Earth. If humans still exist, we will offer them a place in this war. Risa bowed deeply, her wings spreading in gratitude. I will not fail you, High Executor. The council adjourned, and Valen remained alone in the chamber, staring at the red markers on the map. He did not tell the others what he truly feared. He feared that even if they found these legendary humans, it would not matter. The Scourge was beyond anything the galaxy had ever faced. What could one more species do against such overwhelming darkness? Risa spent 40 days and 40 nights in the archive vaults. She cross-referenced star charts, decrypted ancient navigation logs, and pieced together fragments of forgotten trade routes. The other archivists thought she had lost her mind, but Risa was driven by something beyond reason. She was driven by hope. On the 41st day, she found it, a set of coordinates hidden in the personal journal of an explorer named Talvek the Wanderer. He had visited Earth 3,000 cycles ago and described it as the most beautiful and terrifying world he had ever seen. He recorded the exact location before his ship's navigation system mysteriously failed and erased all official records. Risa brought the coordinates to High Executor Valen. He looked at them for a long moment, then made a decision that would change everything. Take the scout ship Star Whisper. Go to these coordinates. If you find humans, tell them the galaxy needs them. Tell them we have exhausted every option, and tell them that if they help us, we will give them whatever they ask. Risa departed the next morning. The journey to the coordinates would take 3 months through jump gates and hyperspace lanes. She traveled alone except for the ship's AI, reviewing everything she had learned about humans. The more she read, the more fascinated she became. Humans conquered their death world not through strength, but through innovation. They invented tools, formed complex social bonds, and passed knowledge across generations. They were weak individually, but devastatingly effective collectively. When Star Whisper finally emerged from hyperspace at the designated coordinates, Risa's heart nearly stopped. There, orbiting a yellow star, was a blue-green world wrapped in white clouds, and surrounding it were dozens of space stations and hundreds of ships. Earth was real. Humans were real. They had not disappeared. They had simply been waiting. Risa sent a standard diplomatic greeting on all frequencies. For 10 nerve-wracking minutes, there was no response. Then a reply came in perfect Galactic standard. This is Earth Defense Command. Identify yourself and state your purpose. Risa explained who she was and why she had come. She told them about the Scourge, about the dying civilizations, about the desperate need for help. She expected skepticism, perhaps even refusal. What she got instead was something she never anticipated. Stand by for boarding. We are sending a delegation. An hour later, a human ship docked with Star Whisper. It was smaller than Caltherian vessels, built with unusual angular lines and covered with sensor arrays. When the airlock opened, Risa got her first look at actual humans. They were shorter than Caltherians, with only 2 arms and 2 legs. Their skin came in various shades of brown, and they had hair on their heads that served no apparent protective function. They wore matching gray uniforms with insignias that Risa did not recognize. They looked fragile, almost delicate. The leaders stepped forward and extended a hand, a human gesture Risa had read about. She awkwardly mimicked the motion, and the human grasped her hand firmly. I am Captain Marcus Reed of the United Earth Alliance. This is Lieutenant Sarah Chen, my tactical officer, and Dr. James Park, our zoobiologist. We have been monitoring galactic communications for decades. We know about the Scourge. We have been preparing. Risa felt her wings flutter with excitement. Then you will help us? Marcus Reed smiled. It was a strange expression, showing teeth that seemed too small to be threatening. Yet something in his eyes made Risa think of predators watching prey. Ambassador Risa, my species spent 10,000 years learning one fundamental truth. When someone needs help, you help them. We are ready to fight. But understand this, we do not fight like you do. We do not have scales or energy shields or quantum weapons. We have something else." "What?" Risa asked. "We have Earth, and Earth taught us that survival is not about being the strongest, it's about being the most stubborn." The journey back to Caltherian space took 2 months. Captain Reed brought his ship, the Defiant Dawn, along with 200 human soldiers and support personnel. During the voyage, Risa learned much about humans. They ate food that would poison most species. They exercised constantly to maintain muscle mass in lower gravity. They told jokes even when discussing serious matters, using humor as a tool to manage stress. They formed bonds quickly, not just with each other, but with Risa herself. Lieutenant Sarah Chen spent hours teaching Risa about human military doctrine. She called it asymmetrical warfare, when you cannot win through.
James nodded thoughtfully. The thing about humans is that we've been dealing with adaptive threats for our entire evolutionary history. Viruses, bacteria, parasites, other humans. We learned that the key to defeating something that adapts is to become unpredictable. Never do the same thing twice. Always have a backup plan. And when all else fails, do something so crazy that nobody, not even you, knows what will happen next. When they finally arrived at Caltheria Prime, High Executor Valen personally greeted them. He stood on the landing platform with General Thrace and the full War Council. Valen had hoped for a miracle, for warriors of legend. What he saw instead was 200 small, soft creatures who looked like they had never seen real combat. Captain Marcus Reed walked down the ramp and saluted in the human fashion. "High Executor Valen, on behalf of Earth and all humanity, I thank you for this opportunity. We are ready to serve." Valen struggled to hide his disappointment. These could not be the legendary Death Worlders. They were too small, too calm, too ordinary. But he had given his word. "Welcome to Caltheria," Valen said formally. "I am assigning your forces to the garrison at Meridian 7. It is a supply outpost, far from the front lines. You will provide support and observe our military operations. Once you have been properly trained in modern warfare, we will discuss more active roles." He expected the human commander to object, to demand a position of honor as warriors usually did. Instead, Marcus Reed simply nodded. "We accept your assignment with gratitude. Thank you for trusting us with this responsibility." General Thrace leaned close to Valen as the humans were led away. "You are wasting time with these creatures. They are not warriors, they are barely evolved primates." Valen watched the humans depart, noting how they moved with careful coordination, how they constantly scanned their surroundings, how even in peace they seemed ready for war. "Perhaps, but I have learned something in my long life, General. Sometimes the most dangerous predators are the ones that do not look dangerous at all." The humans departed from Meridian 7 the next day. Valen returned to his war room and stared at the red markers spreading across the map. The Scourge had taken 3 more worlds while he wasted time on myths and legends. He felt foolish for hoping that ancient stories could save them. He did not know that in 9 days the Scourge would attack Meridian 7. He did not know that he was about to witness something that would change his understanding of war forever. He did not know that the myths were not exaggerations, they were understatements. Meridian 7 floated at the edge of Caltherian space, a modest station built around a resource-rich asteroid. 3,000 Caltherian soldiers were stationed there, along with civilian contractors and automated mining equipment. It was boring, safe, and utterly unimportant to the war effort, the perfect place to hide humans until Valen decided what to do with them. Station Commander Krell was a veteran of 40 campaigns. He had fought in the Muradin Rebellion, survived the plasma storms of Keltor, and earned 3 medals for valor. He was also deeply skeptical of the new arrivals. When the Defiant Dawn docked, Krell stood at the airlock with his arms crossed. The humans filed out carrying equipment cases and personal gear. They looked even smaller in person. Krell had to resist the urge to laugh. Captain Marcus Reed approached and extended his hand. Krell stared at it. "What is this?" "A handshake. It is how humans greet each other. It shows we come in peace and friendship." Krell reluctantly touched the human's hand. The grip was firm, much stronger than he expected. I am Station Commander Krell. I have been ordered to accommodate your presence here. You will follow all station regulations. You will not interfere with military operations, and you will stay out of the way. Is this clear? Perfectly clear, Commander. Marcus replied without any trace of offense. We appreciate your hospitality. Over the following days, the humans settled into their assigned quarters. They did not complain about the cramped spaces or the bland food. They simply adapted. They also began doing things that confused the Caltherian soldiers. Corporal Nina Osworth, a human engineer, spent hours examining the station's defensive systems. She made notes, drew diagrams, and asked endless questions about how everything worked. When Krell asked what she was doing, she smiled and said she was learning. Medic Jonathan Cross set up a clinic and offered to treat any soldiers who needed medical attention. Several Caltherians visited him out of curiosity and were amazed when he healed minor wounds using techniques they had never seen. He explained that human medicine focused on helping the body heal itself, rather than replacing damaged parts with artificial components. Sergeant Alara Kim, a human scout, requested permission to survey the asteroid's surface. Krell granted it, thinking it was harmless. What he did not know was that Alara was mapping every tunnel, every shadow, every place where defenders could hide or ambush attackers. She was preparing for a battle that no one else believed would come. On the 9th day, alarms screamed across Meridian 7. Sensors detected a massive scourge fleet emerging from hyperspace. Hundreds of ships, thousands of biomechanical warriors. They had found the station somehow. They were coming to destroy it. Commander Krell stood in the command center, his scales pale with shock. How did they find us? We're off all major routes. We have no strategic value. Captain Marcus Reed stepped beside him, perfectly calm. Commander Krell, I need you to prepare defenses immediately. Defenses? Krell laughed bitterly. We are a supply station. We have 3,000 soldiers and minimal weapons. They have overwhelming numbers. Standard doctrine requires immediate evacuation. And where would we evacuate to? Marcus asked reasonably. Their fleet surrounds us. Any ship that launches will be destroyed. Our only option is to defend this station until reinforcements arrive. Reinforcements will not arrive in time. High Command will not risk a fleet for a worthless outpost. Marcus placed a hand on Krell's shoulder. The gesture was strangely comforting. Commander Krell, I need you to trust me. We can hold this station. We can win, but only if you let us fight the way we know how. Krell looked into the human's eyes. He saw no fear there, no doubt, only calm certainty. Against all logic and experience, Krell found himself nodding. What do you need? Marcus smiled. Time to show you what humans really are.
Caltheran soldiers who had retreated from the sector watched in stunned silence. They had never seen anything like this. Warriors who refused to fall, who ignored mortal wounds, who fought with a savagery that matched the scourge itself. Commander Krell witnessed the entire battle through security cameras. He watched humans hold positions that should have been overrun. He watched them adapt to enemy tactics in real time, changing strategies every few minutes to prevent the scourge from learning their patterns. He watched them drag wounded comrades to safety while still fighting off attackers. He watched them do the impossible. I do not understand, Krell said to Captain Reed. Your people should be dead. How are they still fighting? Marcus watched his soldiers on the screens, and his expression was a mixture of pride and sorrow. Because Earth taught us that survival is not about being strong or fast or tough. Survival is about refusing to quit. Every human alive today is descended from ancestors who survived ice ages, plagues, predators, wars, and 1,000 other extinction events. We carry that legacy in our genes. We do not know how to give up. A new alarm sounded. The Scourge were adapting, deploying heavier units and changing their tactics. What had started as a chaotic swarm was becoming an organized assault. They were learning. Nina Osworth's voice crackled over the communication system. Captain Reed, I have analyzed their attack patterns. They are using quantum entanglement for fleet-level communication. That means they can coordinate across vast distances instantly. Even if we disrupt local signals, the overall swarm stays connected to the central intelligence. Can we block it? Marcus asked. Not with Caltheran technology. Their quantum shielding is not designed for this type of interference. But I have an idea. If we overload the station's fusion reactor and create a controlled electromagnetic pulse, it would disrupt their quantum field for approximately 7 minutes, long enough to break their coordination completely. Krell's scales went pale. Overloading the reactor could destroy the entire station. Not if we do it correctly, Nina replied. I have run the calculations. It will work, but someone needs to stay in the reactor chamber to manually regulate the discharge. The radiation will be lethal. Silence fell across the command center. Everyone understood what that meant. It was a suicide mission. I will do it, came a voice. Lieutenant Sarah Chen stepped forward. She had been coordinating defensive positions, her tactical genius keeping the Caltheran forces organized and effective. I have the engineering background and I can make the necessary adjustments in real time. Marcus shook his head. Sarah, no, we can find another way. There is no other way, sir. You know that. She smiled, and it was the same calm smile she always wore. Besides, I always said I wanted to go out doing something that mattered. Saving a few thousand lives and stopping the scourge seems like a good ending. Marcus wanted to argue, wanted to refuse, but he knew she was right. Leaders made hard choices. That was the burden of command. He stepped forward and hugged her, a breach of military protocol that no one commented on. Make it count, Lieutenant. Always do, Captain. Sarah Chen went to the reactor chamber accompanied by Nina Osworth, who would help her set up the overload sequence before evacuating. As they worked, Sarah thought about Earth, about the green hills of her childhood home in Taiwan, about the families she had left behind to serve among the stars. She thought about all the humans throughout history who had sacrificed themselves so others could live. She was part of that tradition now too, part of that endless chain of people who understood that some things were worth dying for. The electromagnetic pulse erupted across Meridian 7 exactly 7 minutes later. Every electronic system on the station shut down temporarily, and the Scourge swarm lost all coordination. Warriors stopped mid-attack, confused and directionless. The quantum connection to their central intelligence was severed. That was when the humans struck. Captain Reed had been waiting for this moment, planning for it. While the Scourge were blind and confused, human and Caltheran forces launched a coordinated counterattack. They hit hard and fast, eliminating enemies before they could reorganize. Sergeant Alara Kim and her squad assaulted the main landing zone, destroying drop pods before reinforcements could deploy. Medic Jonathan Cross led teams that rescued trapped soldiers and evacuated civilians while the enemy was paralyzed. In 7 minutes, the tide of battle shifted completely. When the Scourge connection restored, they found themselves fractured, depleted, and surrounded. For the first time in recorded history, the Scourge began to retreat. Commander Krell stood in the command center, watching enemy ships withdraw from the system. He could not speak. He could barely think. Everything he knew about warfare had been challenged in the span of a few hours. Captain Marcus Reed stood beside him, looking tired and sad. His uniform was stained with blood, some his own, some belonging to his soldiers. He had lost 17 humans today, including Lieutenant Sarah Chen. Each loss weighed on him like a stone. You won, Krell said finally. You defeated the Scourge. We survived, Marcus corrected gently. Winning would mean they never came back, but they will. The Scourge do not stop. They just pause and learn. Next time they will be ready for our tactics. Then what do we do? Marcus looked at the Caltheran commander and a small smile crossed his face. We do what humans have always done. We adopt faster than they do. We change our tactics before they can learn. We become unpredictable, relentless, and too stubborn to die. And we never, ever give up. Krell felt something stir in his chest, something he had not felt in years of losing battles. It was hope. not the false hope of desperation, but real hope based on evidence and possibility. These humans were small and soft and fragile. They died just as easily as any other species, but they possessed something that no amount of armor or weapons could replicate. They possessed an unbreakable will. I need to send a report to High Command. What should I tell them about you? Marcus thought for a moment. Tell them the myths were wrong. We are not invincible warriors. We are not superior beings. We are just survivors from a world that taught us one lesson better than any other species learned it. Tell them we are humans and we do not know how to quit. As medics treated the wounded and engineers began repairs, the survivors of Meridian 7 gathered to honor their dead. 17 humans had fallen, along with 342 Calferan soldiers. Each name was read aloud, each sacrifice acknowledged. Humans and Calferans stood together, united by shared battle and shared grief. Private David Moss stood with his arm in a regeneration sleeve, watching the ceremony. Beside him stood a Calferan soldier named Trevok, who had fought in the same corridor during the battle. I owe you my life, Trevok said quietly. When that Scourge warrior had me pinned, you threw yourself at it. You saved me. David shrugged, then winced as the movement pulled at his healing wounds. That's what we do. We look out for each other. But I'm not human. I'm not your kind. David looked at the Calferan soldier and smiled. You fought beside me. You bled beside me. That makes you my kind. That's another thing Earth taught us. Family is not about biology. Family is about who stands with you when everything goes dark. Trevok felt something shift in his understanding of the universe. These humans were not just warriors, they were something more profound. They were teachers, showing the galaxy what it meant to face impossible odds with courage and compassion. In orbit above Meridian 7, a fleet was approaching. High Executor Valen had received Commander Krell's report and immediately dispatched reinforcements. He arrived expecting to find a destroyed station and dead heroes. Instead, he found a battered but functional outpost defended by soldiers who looked at him with quiet pride. Valen came aboard and requested an immediate meeting with Captain Marcus Reed. They met in a damaged conference room where scorch marks still decorated the walls. Captain Reed, I have read Commander Krell's report 3 times and I still find it difficult to believe. You defeated a Scourge assault with minimal casualties. You held a position that should have been overrun in minutes. You did what my best generals could not do. Marcus remained standing, his posture respectful but not subservient. We did what was necessary, High Executor, nothing more. Do not diminish what you accomplished here. You proved that the Scourge can be beaten. You proved that victory is possible. Valen paused, choosing his next words carefully. I want to offer you and your people a new assignment. I want you at the front lines. I want you training our soldiers, sharing your tactics, teaching us how to fight like you fight. Will you accept? Marcus considered the offer. He thought about the 17 humans they had lost today. He thought about Lieutenant Sarah Chen sacrificing herself to save thousands. He thought about the responsibility that came with this choice. We accept, but I have conditions. Human forces operate under human command structure. We will coordinate with Caltheran forces, but we maintain tactical independence. We choose our battles and we do things our way. Most military commanders would have been insulted by such demands. Valen simply